Alright, take two. I'll just edit that out. Alright, take two of this video. Alright, so I'm just going to do a little preamble here. I've been trying to get some videos done in the last little bit since I did the Haken review a few months ago. Motivation just hasn't really been there. Um, I'm still kind of reeling from like just the burnout of doing album reviews for Ultimate Guitar for so long. And I mean, there have been a couple albums I've been really passionate about in the last few months, and maybe I'll still get to them in our discussion. I know I'll be talking with the Prague Roundtable tomorrow about some, quarter two fun that we've been having. But, I figured I'd just kind of break the ice on my channel by getting back into making videos and just doing it in the most, like, shitpost lazy kind of way, because as you can see, we've got a tier maker list, and I'm doing Dream Theater's live recordings. I've seen a lot of people do their studio albums. I haven't seen too many people rank their live records. And the rule here, as you can see, these are all in chronological order, and there's none of the like bootlegs, none of the like Lost Not Forgotten series stuff. It's just the off the shelf Dream Theater live albums. It's just whatever you can buy at the store. Well, I mean, you can buy the Lost Not Forgotten series in record stores too, I guess, but these are like the main series live recordings from Dream Theater. So let's start right from the beginning. Let's go with Live at the Marquee. So the thing with Live at the Marquee, it's a pretty short recording, and there's not really much to it. There is, of course, the video, which is live in Tokyo. But I actually find that there wasn't really too much to go on with that, just because, live in Tokyo didn't really have too much. It was more of a clip show, a lot of clips of songs, clips of the band backstage and on tour. Whereas, Live at the Marquee is a proper, uh, you know, live record. And, there's really only six tracks. One of them is an instrumental jam session, Bombay Vindaloo, and then you've got a piece called Another Hand, which opens the Killing Hand. Um, Mostly just material from the first two records, because that's really all they had out at the time. So, I'm going to say this. So, Dream Theater, of course, this is the only one of these live recordings that comes out before James LaBrie's vocal injury. And, Dream Theater are kind of defined a bit by James LaBrie's vocals. And whether a lot of people like them or not comes down to that. And a lot of people like to say, well, the early Dream Theater stuff, of course, is better because it's before his vocal injury. But when you listen to some of the live material that they were doing, during this Images and Words era, it's quite clear that James LaBrie oversins a lot. He really tries to reach for higher notes than he has any business trying to hit. That is a problem with this release. So I'm gonna say it's short, it's sweet. What it has on it is good, and for that, I think it's a solid B. It's a B tier. I don't think it would be, my first choice of a Dream Theater live record. It's not the one I would suggest that you start off with, but I do think it's a good one. I do think it's, a nice, short, interesting, early glimpse into the band's live repertoire. So that brings us to what I consider their first real, like, big live package, and that's Once in a Lifetime. And that one was done on the tour cycle for their album Falling into Infinity. And at this point, they only really have four albums to their names, so there is a little bit of padding on this in the name of, like, uh, Derek Sherinian piano solo and a John Petrucci guitar solo, which goes on for about 9 minutes or so. And they kind of stretch out. Oh, and a 7-minute drum solo too. They kind of stretch out A Change of Seasons by playing sections of it throughout the set. Um, it focuses a lot on images and words and falling into infinity material. There's only really a couple tracks from Awake. The video is pretty decent. You know, it's very much a time capsule of their 90s material. This is the one that's most immediate after James LaBrie's vocal injury, and I think it's the only one where it really kind of shows, like, his voice kind of creaks through some of the songs. Maybe he's not quite as able to hit some of the high notes, so, you know, the performances are a little middling. You know, instrumentally, I'll say this, every single release they've done instrumentally is perfect. There's nothing really that differentiates any of their live releases from the four instrumentalists of the band, but James LaBrie is usually the determining factor of whether a Dream Theater live album is going to hit you in the feels or if it's just going to leave you high and dry. So, once in a lifetime, I think it's a C. You know, it's a good first effort for like a big package live album and video. It kind of leaves a bit to be desired in James LaBrie's performances, and the set list is a little skewed heavy towards either their hit album or their new album. So that brings me to Live Scenes from New York, and this is also kind of one where, kind of like Live at the Marquee, you have two separate sort of releases. You have the Live Scenes from New York album, and then you have the Metropolis 2000 DVD, which I believe is pulled from the same performance, but the two releases have a different track list. The Live Scenes from New York album features the full concert from, I believe it's the Roseland Ballroom in New York City, so it's a home show for them, and importantly, it is from the tour cycle for Metropolis Part 2 Scenes from a Memory, probably their best album, in my opinion. And, um, you know, the set list, of course, is still very skewed towards some of their, you know, hit material. I've got it on another screen. I'm looking here just to sort of cross-reference. There's a lot of stuff from, of course, Falling into Infinity, some stuff from Images and Words. But the big determining factor for this release is that they performed their new album, Scenes from a Memory, in its entirety. And um, that section alone was released as its own release on DVD for the Metropolis 2000 release. And I'm going to say, just based entirely on my knowledge of the Metropolis 2000 release, this is pretty good. Are there some vocal blunders because, you know, Mike and John haven't really gotten a grasp of being backing vocalists yet, and James LaBrie is still recovering from his vocal injury? Yeah. Are there some graphic moments that are very, graphic design is my passion? Absolutely. But does it just tick all the boxes of feels for how they treated the Metropolis Part 2 concept album in the visuals and even in the performances? I mean, Teresa Thomason, the gospel singer that features quite prominently on a couple of tracks on this record, makes an appearance during a particularly emotional part of the most particularly emotional song on the record. I mean, it just hits you right here every time. And I think for that, this is, I mean, it's at least an A tier, but just on a personal level, this is one of the S tier releases for me. Alright, so next we've got Train of Thought. And this was really like my first live Dream Theater. Oh, come back. My first real live Dream Theater release. I said Train of Thought. I meant Live at Budokan. And, you know, this one's a bit of an interesting one for me because I'm going to get back to talking about James LaBrie's vocal performances a bit here because I think during this era of live performances, like from here up until about when Portnoy left the band, this is really sort of the zenith, I think, for LaBrie's vocal performances on live DVDs. This is really where he did the best job because at this point he's pretty much fully recovered from the vocal injury and age hasn't taken his range quite as much. And there aren't as many like mush mouth moments. And of course instrumentally these are still perfect, you know? So it really comes down to the strength of LaBrie's performances and the strength of the set list. Now, the set list is where I think Live at Budokan falters a bit. Where, you know, really, I know that this is about the era where we start to see bands really, like, focus on their most recent release. But I mean, you could pretty much recreate the Train of Thought record from live renditions of it on this DVD. The only two tracks that are missing are Honor Thy Father and Vacant, although Vacant appears as the credits theme for the record. So that is basically the entire Train of Thought record. Of course, you've got some stuff from Metropolis, some stuff from Falling into Infinity, 6 Degrees, the prerequisite Pull Me Under. Although there are a couple little diversions that I like here, like they pulled out Only a Matter of Time from When Dream and Day Unite, which I think it's a really good rendition of the song. And then you've got the Instrumedley, which is, just a big mix of all these different instrumentals that they've come out with over the years, including some material from Liquid Tension Experiment. And, yeah, I mean, for that, that's pretty cool. And I think it's the only one where we get to see John Mayung play the Chapman stick on New Millennium. So, I mean, there's some really cool stuff with it. The venue, of course, is iconic. So you can't leave that out of the discussion. And, like I said, the performances are great. I think it's really only the set list that kind of bogs this one down a bit. And, honestly, for that, I think it's an A tier. I think what it does perfectly, but I wish it did more. I wish there was more variety. It says on the Wikipedia page for this that due to time constraints, the songs The Great Debate, Under a Glass Moon, and Caught in a Web, which included an extended drum solo, I'm reading this verbatim, were removed from the set list at the last minute. So, what they're saying is that instead of maybe Stream of Consciousness or In the Name of God, we could have had Caught in a Web, which is a great tune, or The Great Debate, which is a song that I don't think it has been represented in a live DVD, but as like a bonus track. I think that would have been really cool, I would have loved to see that instead of a couple of those songs. I think it would have given more variety. So, yeah, I think A is an appropriate place to put Live at Budokan. So now we get to score, and I'm not even going to, save this for the end of the video or anything, or, I'm just going to come right out and say it. In my view, this is their peak for live albums. This is the absolute best live record they've put out. And the reason why I say that, there's a variety in the set list. I mean, there's variety in the set list by design. It is a track from every single Dream Theater record, well, every single record cycle. They didn't play a song from Falling into Infinity. They played a song from the Falling into Infinity demos. It never made an album. This is a rare track. And then, on top of that, they also played a track from the Majesty demos. Not just pre-James LaBrie, pre-Dream Theater, something from like their 1985 early demos. This was to celebrate their 20th anniversary, and they went back all the way to their first recordings with Chris Collins on vocals. And so we have a song from every album cycle, a couple from Octavarium, because they were touring that album at the time. And then, for the second half of the concert, we get Dream Theater being joined by a 100-piece orchestra. And then, what are they banging out? 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence in its entirety. Sacrifice Sons, all 24, extended to 27 minutes of Octavarium, Metropolis Part 1, The Sleeper and the Miracle, with an orchestra, along with The Answer Lies Within and Vacant. It's a mind-blowingly good DVD, and Labríe's performances are on point. There's a lot of guitar faces going on. There's a lot of just big pump-up moments. The tracks they selected from each album, like, they didn't just do Pull Me Under Again. We're talking like Under a Glass Moon, Innocence Faded. Yeah, they did The Spirit Carries On. That's one of their popular songs. But when they did Train of Thought, it was Vacant, the one song they didn't do on Live at Budokan. So, and then, of course, if you wanted the rest of it, I think, Honor Thy Father and The Great Debate, the two tracks that, one of them was the only one that didn't get represented on Live at Budokan, then the other one was cut from the set list. Those are bonus tracks, and you've got Another Day, live in Tokyo in 93. This started the whole trend of the animations during instrumental sections, so that's sort of split off. It's just so good. Like, if there was a tier above S, I would put Score in it. Score is a perfect live DVD. Alright, now, can the same be said for Chaos in Motion? I'm gonna say this. Chaos in Motion does have a really good set list. I mean, there's some stuff I wouldn't have expected, like Blind Faith. Scarred makes it there. Take the Time. Surprisingly, this is, I think, one of the first versions of it on... Oh, no, I think they did it on Budokan as well, but it just feels like that's a track you don't think of too much on live records. Then you've got the Schmedley Wilcox, which is a bunch of their edits kind of put together. Constant Motion, that also starts with the Also Sprach Zarathustra theme. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on here. The Dark Eternal Night has their, animation to it. The vocal performances, they fluctuate, and here's why. This one is not one concert. Until now, all of these releases have been a single concert, or at least, a part of a single concert condensed into one package. This one is a bunch of individual recordings from a bunch of different shows on this tour. So each song kind of comes from a different place. I actually think Blind Faith was recorded in Toronto, so that's my local tune. Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's great. I don't think it's on the level of Budokan. But I definitely think it's a B tier, It's one that you can enjoy. It's kind of it's a chill live DVD. It's not trying to bonk you over the head with, like, a set list of, this is our new album. It's not a concept. It's not like there's nothing to it. It's just like, here's a bunch of our songs that we played on tour. Alright, so now we've got to Live at Luna Park, and this is the first live DVD that they did without Mike Portnoy. And, of course, they're going to focus a lot on a dramatic turn of events on this. And in fact, many of the songs on this record are from a dramatic turn of events. I actually think If you include the bonus tracks on the DVD, I think it's like the whole album is on here. So that's a bit of a bummer, considering what I said about like Train of Thought, um, Once in a Lifetime. You have a set list that's very skewed towards one particular record. And then you have a few like tracks from all over the discography. You have, a couple from Awake, Systematic Chaos, Octavarium, Metropolis Part 2. You gotta have 6 Degrees, War Inside My Head, The Test That Stumped Them All. But again, this one is very skewed towards a dramatic turn of events, and I think for that reason, I kind of look at this DVD the same way that I look at Live at Budokan, It's a good representation of where the band was in 2013, but it wouldn't be the album I'd recommend for somebody who wants like a broad spread of tracks from the band. And of course, there are some interesting moments, like you've got the acoustic section with The Silent Man and Beneath the Surface. Um, yeah, the rendition of Metropolis Part 1 is pretty good on this. One thing I will say, like, if I'm focusing a lot on the DVD aspect of it, the visuals are really good on this DVD. Like, I love the stage they had set up. I love the effects. I love just the look of everything. The vibe of everything is really cool with Live at Luna Park. And I'm actually going to say, for a later era record, James's performances are okay. He's a little pitchy here and there, but I think his performances are okay. So I think it's an A tier. Um, Alright, so now we get to Breaking the Fourth Wall, which is the first of two Dream Theater live videos that I own on Blu-ray disc, which means that all I have to play them is my video game consoles back there, my PlayStation 4, because I don't have a Blu-ray player. But I mean, you look at the set list for this, and going on the strength of the set list again, it's not good. I mean, it focuses a lot again on their new album material, as any DVD would. So their self-titled album gets like 5 or 6 tracks devoted to it on this. And then there's, a couple tracks from like Falling into Infinity. They do commit a little bit of sacrilege here for the time by adding The Shattered Fortress from Black Clouds and Silver Linings, which was released just before Mike left, and, it's kind of considered Mike Portnoy's song. And they did that. And then they have an entire section devoted to the last several tracks of the Awake record, which includes Space Divest, a track entirely written by Kevin Moore, and one that the band had always been very reluctant to play live. And they do a different rendition of it here, let's say. Um, then they do an entire section of, sort of the beginning and important bits and ending of Metropolis Part 2. Kind of a condensed version of playing the Metropolis album. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. It's not bad, but the set list is very skewed towards doing these like grand sort of concept things by having an entire section devoted to one album and an entire section devoted to another, and then having a lot of stuff from the new album. I'd say that the one sort of big plus of this is you've got the Illumination Theory suite done. This also includes a orchestra. I believe it's actually throughout. No, it's only tracks 14 through 18 through. So Illumination Theory and the Scenes from a Memory tracks. It's the Berklee College of Music Orchestra and Choir. And yeah, I'm gonna say this is the one where I think James LaBrie's vocals genuinely grate on me a bit. It's a little bit. There's a lot of moments of James LaBrie mushmouth, And I mean, I don't think he's at an age anymore where he can hit the high notes in a song like Scarred. There's a reason why when they did the live version of Images and Words, which is not on this because it's one of the uh, Lost Not Forgotten records, they had to tune down a half step for that. So there's a reason why that's not played at pitch anymore. I'm flirting here. Like this, I don't want to put one in D. I'll put it in C. All right, so that the last one we've got here is Distant Memories live in London. That is their to date most recent live recording. And um once again, this one's kind of a thing where you have to consider the set list. And I would actually say, even though this is very skewered towards one album, and I'll mention why later, but I'm actually going to give this one a better grade because we do have, of course, a bunch of songs from the band's new album. Distance Over Time gets represented a little more than anything else, but the tracks that aren't from it that are represented are two that I think are really good. A Nightmare to Remember, and the performance on it kind of makes me wish Mike Portnoy had never done that, like, growl guest vocal in it, because I actually think that what James LaBrie does in this section fits better. I wouldn't normally say that about something James LaBrie sings over something someone else sings, but I actually think James LaBrie's what he did during that section in A Nightmare to Remember is better than what Mike Portnoy did on the original recording. So for that, and I mean the vocal performance is alright. And then the other one is In the Presence of Enemies Part 1, which is just one of the best sort of later era Dream Theater tracks. And I have to give them props for those two tracks. Now, the second half of this, I had the pleasure of actually seeing the band play this set list live in person in Toronto. And this is a repeat. This is something they've done before. It's Scenes from a Memory in its entirety, just like Metropolis 2000 and Live Scenes from a Memory. Now, that rendition of it, of course, I put an S tier. This rendition is still good, but I do feel like James's vocals, while not as bad as they were on Breaking the Fourth Wall, I do think James shows his propensity for over singing once again. He takes a lot of, like, when a melody goes like this, he does this. And I wish he would just sing the melodies from the original record, the way we recognize them. Because he can still do them clearly, he can still hit the notes. But he just decides to perform them a little different so that we all know that this wasn't just, an overdub or something. But it is a full rendition of the Scenes from a Memory record, and on top of that, I actually really enjoyed what they did with the big backing screen. Of course, with Live Scenes from a Memory, Metropolis 2000, they were working with late 90s, early 2000s technology, and they couldn't really have the budget for a big video screen with all kinds of great things going on. And with this one, they were able to do some animation and do some really incredible things with the backdrops. And of course, this is also from the era, like, I think ever since Score, they had Jordan Rudess with the keytar, so we get a lot more keytar action from him. It's a lot more, like, maybe it's not as good for the crowd interaction, but there's a lot more, like, good photo opportunities where, like, if you're watching the show, you get to see that photo, like, during Fatal Tragedy when Petrucci and Rudess are on the riser behind the drum kit, doing the shred off at the end. It's just really cool. Like, visually, it's a cool DVD. And Labrie's performances are okay. There is a little mush mouth here and there. I think there's also a little too much distortion, which isn't necessarily James's fault. That's down to the production, but it kind of ruins some of his vocal performances. So I think for this one, I wish I could put it between A and B. Like, I want it right here, basically. It's not good enough to be an A, but it's too good to be a B. But weighted averages, I'm going to say it's a B. So there we go. Like, I think if I'm going to do my ranking overall, my number one is Score. Number two would have to be Live Scenes from New York, then Live at Budokan, Luna Park. Uh, I think the next one after that would have to be Chaos in Motion, then Distant Memories, then Live at the Marquee, then Breaking the Fourth Wall, and I think my lowest tier one, my lowest ranked one would have to be Once in a Lifetime. I just never got on with that one, but yeah, there you go. So that's basically it. That's my tier ranking for Dream Theater's live recordings. At least the official ones, not the official bootlegs, not the Lost Not Forgotten series. I'll probably have a different video focusing on those at some point in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching. Low Show out.